What?
Yeah.
What do you
Well,
have to do?
everybody,
It's
thanks
too
for
late.
joining us tonight. It's more of these crazy fools just eat meat and can't stop talking about it. Occasionally, we hear a Nutella story, but maybe not tonight because there's riots going on. So, anyways, we just got together tonight to talk about how we think the world might be a little different if everybody was on carnivore. Because, you know, people who live in a meat-based lifestyle tend to be a little mellower. Some people know it as Zero Carb Zen. I mean, what do you guys think? You think that if people were on a nice meat-based diet, carnivore diet, that they'd be a little more chill? What do you think?
Well, I
I
mean,
think
yeah. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say I think they'd be more worried about having a barbecue than going out riding.
Yeah. Of course,
Yeah,
they might have looted the meatpacking district and we would have all been in trouble. But instead, they're stealing clothes.
yeah. I got clothes. I mean, I'm good on that. And hey, being carnivore, talking about zero carbs in, like you lose weight, your other friends are going the other way. So like your friends are giving away their skinny clothes
Mm.
while you're looking for skinny clothes. So you could
Mm.
just
And
totally
you could
like
give them
trade
your
with
fat
them.
clothes, right?
Yeah,
You
you can
trade them
give
your
them
fat clothes for their skinny clothes. Yeah,
right.
excellent, excellent.
Yeah. That makes you happy, right? Putting on, seeing the weight go down, the inches.
So how far are you from any excitement, Ray?
How far am I from what? Oh, the excitement. Yeah, I'm about probably 15 miles in. So, which is pretty close. So, I didn't get to see anything though.
Your curfew's at 9 o'clock at night.
9 o'clock. Yeah.
And how much protesting are they doing in Sydney over this issue, Joe Zimbo? Has the fury reached downtown Sydney yet?
No, not at all.
Not at all.
We're very different over here. I mean, we always like to compare ourselves to America, but we're nothing like America. We're more like New Zealand.
Imagine that.
Is there any like racist stuff that happens there?
Oh yeah, of course. Look, we're a very multicultural country and society. So I mean, I grew up.
Oh, wait, let me rephrase. Black on white racism, not the whole.
No. Look, if any, it's more the Aboriginals, Indigenous, and whites. But look, that's not much anymore. We've all integrated pretty well.
Yeah.
We all respect each other. It's we've moved on, in my opinion, anyway, and from what I can see.
Yeah, so I mean, personally, zero carbs in, what is it? Why are we talking about it? It's just interesting. You start carnivore and then you hit this point where the little things that used to bother you just don't seem to really bother you anymore.
Right.
And it's just like, well, why? Why is this no longer like troublesome, and you just feel different, and it's hard to pinpoint it. It's like, oh, it must be the diet, and it's really funny, and I tell people that I coach, um um it's like a leap of faith, because once you hit that zero carb zen, you can't describe the feeling. Like you could tell them, oh, I feel calmer, I'm less frustrated, I'm easier to get along with, I have more energy, but they really have to feel it for themselves. So like, I've been coaching somebody for a minute here, and maybe we'll get them on the podcast. And you could tell he hit that zero carbs in part, because he's like this dude was like stressing, about like so much stuff, and now it's a stressful time, and I understand that, so it's like warranted. But man, the other day he called me like a few days ago and was like just happy as a clam, like, and that's the thing, is that like life isn't perfect, it never will be, but you almost have periods where it feels like it is. And it's like, um you know and what changed? You know, you're probably still at the same job, or you're still going to school, or that chick still doesn't like you. You know, whatever your hang up is, and like it just doesn't bother you anymore. And so yeah, so you can tell like a change in people if you knew them before carnivore to when they become carnivore, especially when they hit that like 4 month mark, 5 month mark, 6 month mark. It's just woo, like it really is a real shift. I'm curious, Raymond, in your coaching, I don't know if you've been able to coach somebody that long yet, if that coincides with your experience.
Yeah, I have. Actually, we were talking about it earlier with Tim, for example. And my best example is actually not Tim. My best example is there's a guy who's really type A. I mean, he first came on. The first thing he wanted to do, he's like, I want a six pack like you. You know, he books me every single week. And he was like, I'm willing to do anything. Okay. And when I say type A, this dude, so I introduced him by mistake to Cole Robinson. So he decided to go balls to the wall, try that. Of course, he felt miserable. And I was like, look, all I want you to do is focus for carnivore, you know, and not even think about the food at all. And I was like, you don't have to torture yourself like this initially, because later on it's going to be very easy to do. You don't have to do it willpower. So he started listening to me finally, because I guess he had a miserable time. But after he did carnivore for about a month, I tell you, it's like talking to a different guy. He's a totally different, transformed. I mean, because his type A is almost like, I don't know, he's so calm. And I'm like, wow, he doesn't even, it's not like he doesn't care about the six pack anymore. It's just like, it's like, I don't know how to exemplify it. It's like he's not anal about it anymore, you know?
It's a different level of intensity, right? Still committed, but a different level of intensity.
Yeah. It's very hard to describe it, just like Justin said. But yeah, it's like a different level of intensity. Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean, we could kind of speculate as to what's going on there. The first thing is that when you're on a, ultra low carb, no carb, zero carb, whatever you want to call it, meat based diet, your blood sugar's, more constant, right? So a lot of people get that bump when they wake up in the morning, the dawn effect, and then you're pretty mellow all day. Like, so you're never on that sugar roller coaster. You're not feeling your glucose go up and down. You never feel your blood sugar crash again. So, I mean, that's one thing. I mean, we're all familiar with the term hangry. In fact, I was at the store. I saw some lady with a T-shirt on. It had the word hangry on it and a definition below it, So she was buying a bunch of sugary breakfast cereal when I saw her. But
and Snickers. Did she also have the Snickers? Because,
I think
when you're
the bottom of her cart was, what do you call them over there? Trolleys or something? Shopping carts? What do you call them? When you go to the store,
what'd you say?
Call it a cart, shopping cart.
Yeah, we call it a trolley.
Trolley.
Oh, okay.
Trolley. So yeah, so her trolley I think was all Snickers on the bottom and cereal on top. But
any Nutella, Tom?
She hadn't gotten that part of the story yet, but I'm sure that was coming. She had some peanut butter in there, so yeah. So anyways, that's one thing. I mean, and then we all know that people's tend to be in a lot less pain, right? People have joint pain and stuff like that. It tends to go away, so that puts you in a better mood.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about hormones. People on the wrong diet typically have dysregulated hormones in general. They get all out of whack. One goes down, another goes up. And when you're on a meat-based diet, that stuff seems to normal out. So perhaps that's another reason why people have a much better mood. I mean, we how many stories have we heard of people's anxiety going down?
Oh yeah.
Do we know anybody whose anxiety didn't get better?
I mean,
there is the initial, of course. So initially, sometimes their anxiety does go up initially within the first 2 weeks. But then,
Yeah, people have anxiety over giving up bread and stuff like that.
Yeah. I found for me that I was able to focus a lot more. The brain fog went, and I was my judgment on just general things, was much better. So as Justin said, you tend not to then sweat the small stuff, and only the big things seem to matter. But you can navigate through that much easier.
Yeah, and when you talk about focus, for me, it's really about how you. So I recently did a paper, of like 28 pages of content, and there were days where I was like on the computer typing for like 6 to 8 hours, like pretty much, and just there was no way I'd be able to focus that long before carnivore. No way. And I would have gotten a migraine. I would have had to be battling the 2 weeks I was doing writing, researching, all that. I mean, every other day or at least a few times, I probably would have had like 3 to 4 migraines in that 2 weeks, whereas I had none. I think I had like a couple of headaches, because, everyone, I still have my limits, but it's just, it wasn't, as bad. I was able to focus and get through it. And a little bit of the science. So like when you do eat a carb or sugars, you not only have a firing of dopamine in the bloodstream, but also the insulin, and then stress also increases insulin. So it's like, and then when you try to relax, you get the crash of the insulin and the dopamine. And then that's, I think, the hangry or like feeling really stressed out, and then ketones are actually anxiolytic, which means that they actually calm the brain. They calm you down. Actually, it kind of relaxes you. And the best antidepressant, anti-anxiety medication is a state of ketosis, So that's a part of it. And because we're being carnivore, so on the edge of ketosis at all times, we go 6 hours without eating and we start making ketones pretty much, if it takes that long. And so I think that's a part of it too. And like, not having the crash, because we're pretty stable even after eating, provided you're not having milk. I think milk will delay this effect, and still, you might still have some struggle.
Yeah, dairy can be problematic for a number of reasons. Not the least that it contains, lactose or galactose, which is a sugar. But as we see, people have various reactions to various types of dairy, which complicate matters. So, and some people tolerate it just fine, I know, like my buddy was over last night, and he seemed to be eating a lot of smoked Gouda. It didn't seem to have a negative effect on him. So, do you avoid dairy, Joe?
Do I have? Yeah. I've never really liked it.
So, I mean, do you ever eat even like a little bit of cheese, like a little Parmesan or a little
Parmesan?
Parmesan?
No. Look, I don't eat cheese. I never have. It's just something I've never really liked. The only thing look, it's been quite a while, was ghee. Sometimes I'd cook up some, if I was doing a surf and turf, I'd cook up some prawns with a bit of ghee, because I don't want to use olive oil.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, no, not at all. Although on keto, I was going to say on keto, it was all almond milk, almond and coconut milk. I was going crazy for that stuff.
Uh-oh.
It doesn't have too much sugar?
Not the unsweetened
Yeah.
stuff. The unsweetened stuff, not much at all. But if you get the standard one, packed full of it.
Yeah, regular almond milk and stuff like that has a lot of sugar in it. So yeah, you got to get the unsweetened stuff. You're gonna even try that, of course. That's what when I transitioned from keto to carnivore, so I realized this. I was having a lot of reaction with things like almonds in particular. You think they're kind of innocuous, and then you stop eating them, and you realize, oh, it was messing me up pretty good. So yeah, Ray, you don't do any dairy, right?
I did this week, but yeah.
That's right. You were eating cheese with something. It was you're eating some kind of white cheese. That was some aged cheddar, right?
Yeah, it was the coastal aged cheddar. Yeah. It was all right. I mean, doing it this week, but really and honestly, I'm good without it. I'm better without it. So, my wife was noticing that I was highly bloated.
You're highly what?
Bloated. My stomach did stick out.
Oh.
Which has been a while since it's done that. So, very interesting. Yeah.
I think another thing that we don't stress about is the when grocery shopping is so simple. If you go with friends that are still eating standard American or whatever, vegan, whatever they're doing, go into the vegetable aisle and trying to make sure it's organic or if it's fresh or if it's fallen on the floor and getting sprayed by that stupid water, because as soon as you walk up there to grab the vegetables, it's when they do the spray down or whatever. And then now you got a wet, soggy piece of lettuce or something that you got to put in this plastic bag. And the experience is just terrible, and it's just you go left, right, all the way up to the meat counter, look to make sure there's not a limit, and grab as much as you can, and then walk out. It's that simple. You might need a toiletries, some shampoo, well, unless you're Raymond. You don't need nothing from the store. So it's just the meat aisle and then out.
One big roast, I'm good.
Yeah. And then, it's just because that was stressful. Oh, I hated going grocery shopping. You do your once a week. You have to have a list because you're you have a recipe that you're going to make that week, and it's oh, I got to make sure I got all the right stuff. And it's you got to eat the rainbows. You have to make sure you have 8 different vegetables or something like that. And then did that go bad in the fridge already? And trying to remember what's in the fridge while you're at the store. Oh, that's so stressful. I remember that stuff would stress me out. Maybe it doesn't stress other people out. Maybe people enjoy that, but I did not enjoy going grocery shopping. Now I enjoy it.
I hate shopping still. Well,
do you ever find? Go ahead, Ray.
Oh, go ahead.
No, go.
I was just gonna say I still hate shopping, so that doesn't change me on that.
I was just gonna say, do you ever find yourself undecided though? You get to the meat section, you go, "Oh, I'll get some ribeye," and then you look over, you go, "Oh, wow, that looks really good." That strip loin. Oh, or maybe I feel like a bit of lamb though today, and then you see the pork ribs. Oh, but I haven't had that for a while, and you end up procrastinating for about 5 minutes of what you're going to have,
and yet you still get the beef.
you still get the beef, and then you get home and you cook. You go, "Oh, I really should have got those pork ribs and just whack them on the barbie."
Yeah,
I really it's kind of I shop based on price. There's a lot of things I prefer to eat, and then so I go in there. And right now, of course, the price of beef is more than doubled. And I'm going back to my strategy of shopping the holiday sales. So what was it before
Memorial Day?
What was
the one
that?
before? Valentine's Day?
I don't know. Well, maybe
Easter?
Maybe it was this Memorial Day, and then this. So I went out and I bought ribeyes, and when I went to get them, I just asked them for the leaner side of the roast, and most people want the fattier side. So, and then another supermarket put the New York strips on sale this week. I'm not sure if there was a holiday reason or if that was just it. So since I normally go to the big box store and buy, meat at a better deal, that's gone by the wayside. So I'm shopping at the supermarket and just, getting what the deals are. And I know, New York's are probably one of my most favorite cuts. But I do like the ribeye. I will eat the sirloin tip. Sometimes I prefer the sirloin tip, I guess. So, and then if everything's outrageously expensive, I just kind of shop around the other cuts, Like I've been buying chuck roast when other stuff just wasn't available. And the last couple of chuck roasts I bought, I paid a lot of money for those per pound, but it's all there was. Because I'm avoiding ground beef right now just to see if there's some sort of histamine thing going on with my psoriasis. So I'm trying to stick to fresh cut steaks. So that's usually how I make my choice,
I'm actually kind of surprised that for myself that I've actually been able to be satisfied with pork. So I did pork ribs, which is generally cheaper than beef if you can't find stuff. Pork's usually still there. And I got a pork butt, like a 7-pound pork butt. Like it barely fit in the crock pot. You know what I mean? I just put it in there for like 6 hours, salt, pepper, and like it's bomb. Like a lot of fat. I just want to take that fat and just scoop it on the meat, and it's like good to go. So that's kind of been my like shift, kind of doing more pork and not reacting. I feel so bad for the people that like react to beef or they react to pork. It's like you can't have both. Like I feel so sad for you. you know
Yeah, it's interesting how much your taste changes too, right? Because, a lot of us have been doing this for a while, and my girlfriend doesn't eat a lot of meat per se, but she really loves filet mignon, and we got her some prime fillets. And I was really busy the other day, and I asked her to cook the meat, which she usually doesn't want to do because she's afraid of messing it up, and she likes me to do it. But she cooked it. She cooked herself a fillet, and she cooked me a strip or something. And she's like, "Oh, this fillet came out perfect." And she gave me a bite, and I was like, "Man, it tastes funny. What is going on?" And then I realized she had cooked her fillet with onion and mushroom and salt and pepper and something else. Not that's a pretty common way to prepare steak, at least here in the States. And certainly a way I used to eat it all the time, but it no longer tasted good to me. It tasted really bad. It left a really bad aftertaste in my mouth. And I don't even use pepper anymore. I know pepper started tasting funny to me. And I grind fresh black pepper on steak normally when I'm cooking. I got a nice little pepper grinder, and I don't like it anymore. I mean, I don't know what it is, but I taste the flavor I get from the pepper is not what I remember it being, and it's off-putting. So
I'll have to say there too, Tom, because secret, well, not a secret, but just so me and Tom live relatively close to each other. I actually went to Tom's house last night. We did New York's together, and I asked for pepper because I thought, I'm with company, and it didn't taste as good. It wasn't how I remember before carnivore. The pepper seems to taste fine on pork, but on a New York, like it ruined it a little bit. Like it was good, but it wasn't. It was like, I don't know if I could say the pepper was too strong because that wasn't even it. It was just like the flavor of the pepper itself was just off, like really strange. I don't know. So I agree with you.
yeah, and one thing is I used to pre-season all the meat and let it sit with like a dry rub or whatever on it, and perhaps that's different, and that's more what I'm used to remembering. Because now I just season it when I cook it or right after I cook it. So, maybe that's the difference in the pepper. But yeah, I just prefer it with salt, or, if I'm eating it raw, I don't even put salt on it typically. Sometimes I cook a steak and I just forget to season it and I just eat it, and it's great. Sometimes I like it with salt. But it's weird how simple things get, you know. All the food prep we used to do, all the sauces we used to make, all the sides we used to have, you know, all the just myriad of seasonings and sauces and condiments and oils and all kinds of stuff we used to use, and it just goes out the window.
And also to add to that, you know, the amount of time it used to take to prepare everything. Then to cook, you know, you'd be cooking a steak, and then in a separate pan you'd have, you know, you'd be sautéing your kale, and then another pan you'd be sautéing some mushrooms and onions, and then you know, and then you'd be boiling eggs somewhere else. You know what I mean? So it ended up becoming like a 2-hour job, you know, between prep, cooking, and then cleaning as well.
Yeah, I think cooking, you know, it's really the art of making your food taste like something else. And I think it's become that case of life imitating art, because people get so obsessed with cooking now. And cooking probably originated because people had to eat food that was not palatable. They had to make it palatable, right? And then instead of food just being itself, like, I mean, a decent cut of beef tastes fantastic. It doesn't even have to be an awesome cut of beef. It tastes fantastic, right? Nice piece of pork, fantastic. A nice piece of fish, fantastic. So we don't really need to make it taste like something else. And it seems like we grew up trying to make everything something other than what it was, you know, and there's this glorification of this process. I mean, I used to love watching Anthony Bourdain. I love that show, No Reservations, you know, and then I know lots of people, you know, they watch the cooking channel, and, you know, my mother had hundreds of cookbooks, literally hundreds of cookbooks. And she grew up in a family that was catering, you know, she did catering, lots of cooking and stuff like that. So, and now I look like, I think we'd all be better off. Think about, you know, a lot of the crops that are grown never make it to market because they spoil or they're not good enough or whatever. So, there's a lot of waste out there, you know. Of course, they're starting to develop these secondary markets for less than perfect fruit or whatever, vegetables that don't look quite right, you know, which is a good thing. But think about if none of that was really necessary, and, you know, cows were just eating grass, and, you know, regenerative agriculture was good, and turkeys weren't giant white sickly looking birds in a barn somewhere. They were walking around eating bugs and stuff like they're supposed to. We live in a very different world.
Animals that could be eating all these wonderful fruits that will be eating these animals. So look at it that way. Then there would be really no waste, or a lot less waste.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, my buddy used to have some pigs. They're called mule foots. They don't have a cloven hoof. So it's a little project he started with his kids, I think, for Future Farmers in America or something like that. And he has a little citrus farm, and he would feed the hogs a lot of the leftover citrus or the fruit that was, you know, falling on the ground or whatever. And then he would go to the supermarket and he'd get the you know, vegetables or fruit that they were going to throw away that were you know, too old to sell, and the pigs ate them, and then he apparently had some pretty amazing tasting pork. So
I bet.
Yeah.
So I just want to circle back to the whole supermarket thing for you guys, because over here we go and buy meat, and it's just there's no grading system. You guys, from what I understand, have got a grading system, don't you? So is it prime?
Yeah.
And choice?
Yeah.
Is there another one?
There are other grades, I believe. Those are the two that you're going to see on the shelf.
Okay. So obviously prime, you pay premium.
Yeah, it's usually just fattier.
Okay. And choice is just like a
standard. Not quite
standard.
As bad. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, those are U.S. Department, USDA, the Department of Agriculture, or U.S. What is it? Is it Food and Drug or Agriculture grades it? I forget. And that's, you know, they stamp it one or the other.
USDA, right? Should be.
I think it is USDA, so U.S. Department of Agriculture.
Right.
I mean, the only thing I can think of over here is we've got where you might see on the packaging is called MSA, and it's Meat Standards Australia. So they basically go to the abattoirs and they certify that the meat, has gone through all the correct procedure, and it's certified that it's that kind of meat and how they do everything. And basically, if you get a piece of meat that's MSA approved and it's tough, and you complain, they can go back and trace where that meat came from and go through all their logs and see what's caused that meat to be tough or to have an issue with it. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if they still, I'm sure they still do it, but yeah, I remember years ago, that's the owner of a big butcher wholesaler came in and told us all about it, how it all works. Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right. Well, what do you guys think? How long are these riots going to go on?
Tomorrow's Monday. Some of those people have to go back to work.
Yeah, like 5 or 10% maybe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they got to go home and at least refill their insulin and their metformin and their heart meds.
Oh yeah.
Blood pressure medication. They got their asthma, medication. If it was a bunch of they could never stop a carnivore riot because we would be grabbing rats or like cats and dogs off the street as we're rioting and just
really?
like munching on them.
Oh.
Barbecue.
That's a vision for you.
Or we could just fast. We could just fast throughout the entire time too. If you're like
Sure.
Raymond, and just have all that keto strength. All the ketones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Look, I can't see an ending within the next day or two, but hopefully it doesn't.
Well, they're rolling out the National Guard in LA, but they're rioting in LA, they're rioting in Long Beach, there's Santa Monica, who knows how many towns. Apparently there's a big protest in my own town in Eastvale. I had no idea until somebody had to drive through it, but it's only a mile from my house, so hopefully nothing.
When was the last time they called out the National Guard? Was it not in LA, but in the States? Was it Hurricane Katrina? When all the looting was happening there?
There's probably been a few hurricanes and stuff like that where they've been called out in, maybe some of the big fires, wildfires and stuff like that. So
okay.
I don't think we've had any big riots or the National Guard had to come out. So that's a state by state thing. So I think it's usually the governor of the state has the authority to call the National Guard for his state, or her state. So, but yeah, the LAPD has the green shotguns out, which means they're shooting
rubber bullets,
12 gauge rubber bullets, and probably pepper balls and stuff at people. So they hurt a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure that's not fun to be in that crosshairs.
Yeah, it looks like they're arresting lots of. You see long lines of people with those plastic handcuffs on. So all kinds of mismatched looking people of every different race and age and everything. A lot of times when these things start, it's young people. You got your legit protesters carrying signs and assembling and making a point, and then you get the opportunists who fall in behind them and start looting, setting stuff on fire, stuff like that. And it's usually seems like two different crowds, and I'd imagine it's mostly just opportunists right now, not the actual protesters. Those are just people looting clothing stores.
It's very different seeing the way that they riot in the States currently compared to how they riot in Europe.
Yeah, Europe, you need a lot of beer and a bad soccer game, and then you can riot.
That's it. Right, but the riot police over there will chase you, and they'll belt you. It's completely different. But then they've got the big water cannons that are behind them to disperse the crowd or to get them to move on.
Yeah, fire hoses used to be a standard before we were born, and it got a bad rep. They used to use a lot of dogs and fire hoses on protesters, and they've kind of backed off on that because of the historical what would you call it, negative image that's blasting people with water cannons.
Oh, okay.
They just use chemical weapons now,
Yeah.
rubber bullets,
Tear gas.
tear gas. Yeah.
I saw one using paintballs. Well, it looked like paintball.
Yeah, they're supposed to be like paintballs, I think, with mace or something in them. Like they explode, and yeah, that's what people are complaining about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty. Yeah, I mean, you know, they always update their Riot Gear. You know, there's always something. At least they're not bringing out the stupid sound cannons. Those things, I think, like
that's what I'm waiting for them to come out with. Yeah.
Right, they still have those, you know, all kinds of other crazy stuff, you know.
So what is it? So like a truck with a big ghetto blaster?
No, it's
Plain Celine Dion going down the street.
It looks like a big antenna, really.
antenna, but all it has to do is point at you and you feel like you're burning, supposedly.
Wow.
Yeah, there's like a microwave one too that like makes your skin feel like it's on fire.
Yeah. Wait, I thought that was the one. No, that's the same one. That cannon.
I think they're different, actually.
There's two different, yeah. There's a sound cannon and there's a microwave thing that makes you feel like you're on fire.
Okay.
Yeah. Wow, there's those little ATM kiosks in the stores are all smashed to pieces.
Oh man!
Holy cow!
Well, there goes my holiday.
Yeah.
2026, I think, by the time I get over there to visit you guys.
Yeah, but by the end of, I don't know, what does anybody even talk about COVID-19 anymore?
Actually, they did mention it today that they're really worried that it's going to cause, it's going to spread because everyone's just out there rioting and no one really cares.
Yeah.
So what happens?
That's interesting to see. I mean, they were letting a lot of people go and not locking them up because of the COVID-19. Like somebody was telling me that a guy not so brightly left his car running in front of a store and ran in to get something. Somebody else jumped in it to steal it. The guy came running out after him, jumped in the window. They crashed into a light standard and busted up a yard light. And then the guy who owned the car drugged the other guy out and was beating the tar out of him right there in the parking lot. It's all on video.
Yeah.
The cops came and they said, just write him a citation and tell him to go home.
Wow.
So it was like, grand theft auto, destruction of property, assault and battery. It could have been all kinds of felonies. And they're like, yeah, they didn't want to lock anybody up. So they were letting a lot of stuff skate. Now you've got thousands and thousands of people in the streets. Obviously they're breaking curfews. They are vandalizing stuff. They're stealing stuff out of stores. I mean, they're kicking in. The windows are boarded up and they're kicking in the wood and then bashing the glass and then prying open the bars. They're going to town. They just takes the cops a long time to ever get there and chase people out. A lot of the stores are completely looted before the law enforcement gets there. So
I mean, once they arrest them, where would they be taking them? I mean, there's so many. I mean, you're not arresting 10 people, you're arresting hundreds of them. Where do they take them? How do they process them? Where do they detain these people?
Well, they'll, once they have processing stations in different areas for different, because we have police departments and then sheriff's departments are usually like the county, and the police is usually like the cities themselves. And of course, we've got the National Guard now. So they'll probably take them to lots that are chain link fenced, and they'll probably be in open lots or warehouses until they're processed, or they'll round them up till things quiet down and they'll let a lot of them go.
Right.
So
they can't process them all. There's too many.
It would take a long time.
Long time, yeah.
Oh, yeah, but I mean, you arrest them, you let them go, and then they just go back on the street causing,
Well, yeah, they hold them they detain them for as long as they can. So, which is typically, I think, what you have a detainment period, whatever that is. Whether it's 24 hours or 48 hours, I'm not sure.
A lot. I mean, there's scenes where there's, you know, a dozen people at a time or more sitting on a curb, handcuffed, just sitting there. So you could be sitting there for hours and hours and hours. It'll take a little bit of the venom out of you, I think.
You
Just
get
get
a
tired.
sore ass, wouldn't you? Sitting on the concrete for that long.
Yeah, you get a sore butt, and you know, you got time to think about how, like, and these, a lot of this seems to be moving around. So it's like you move from one neighborhood to another, the excitement's over, the stores are looted. So, you know, do you run and try and catch up with somebody, or you just give up and go home for the night? Get a fresh start in the morning. So, all right, guys, you want to wrap it up here?
Yeah, let's
Sounds good.
What's your message for everybody this week, Ray?
eat meat, drink water.
Justin, what's your message?
Don't fall down the carb hole. I'm sticking to that one. Keep it zero carb zen, you know?
There you go. Keep it zen.
Joe, what do you got to say?
Right, instead of lighting cars, how about you light a barbecue?
There you go.
That's good.
About being meat-based mellow instead of rioting in the streets.
Yeah.
So, but I want to thank everybody for watching. It's weird times we're living through right now. Just go through the COVID-19 lockdown, and now we got protesting, rioting, and the price of meat's double. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching. Please subscribe. It's very helpful. Unfortunately, YouTube has changed the way they do things, and you might want to make sure you have not been unsubscribed from some channels that you actually want to follow, and give us a thumbs up and a like. Maybe send a link onto a video of this video to somebody who might appreciate it, and come and see us again soon. We'll have another video out soon. Everybody eat some meat and feel better.
All right.